Hello there, math scholars. Miss Frizzle here today on Costume Day. Got some pies on my dress. We are about to learn about section 8.4, solving polynomial equations in factored form. So factoring is a skill you will use a lot in your math career, so it's an exciting day. So make sure you hit like and not dislike and subscribe and hit the bell so you have notifications. Who's excited to learn factoring? Yeah! So first up, the students have already seen the zero product property. They're at their seats jotting it down right now. But the zero product property states that if you're multiplying numbers together and getting a solution of zero, then one of the numbers, one of the multipliers, had to have been a zero. So they got the example, if A times B equals zero, then either A was zero or B was zero. Could both A and B could have been zero? Yeah. Both A and B could be zero, but one has to be zero. Okay, so now I have an example down here. I have that x plus 2 is being multiplied by x minus 3, and it's getting an answer of 0. And what that means, because the zero product property, I know that either x plus 2 has to be 0, or x minus 3 has to be 0. Does that make sense? And then you can solve both of those. So let me scroll it a little bit. If I would solve the equation x plus 2 equals 0, I would just subtract the 2 to the other side. So I know that negative 2 is one possible answer. And then if I would solve the equation x minus 3 equals 0, I would just move my 3, and I would find out that x equals 3 is 0. And you've used the word or because one of those two answers has to be true, or the product would not have been 0. Make sense? All right. Let's look at this one. So we know that x minus 4 is being multiplied by x plus 2, and that product is 0. So that allows us to conclude that x minus 4 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0. So what would be the solution to this part of the equation? Some people just solve this in their heads. You would add the 4 to the other side, and you'd get x equals 4. Good. And then the other part of it, x plus 2 equals 0, you'd solve it by subtracting 2 to the other side, negative 2. Now, since this is our first one, we are going to check using substitution. I'm going to show you how you can do that. You would want to check one solution at a time. So let's just check our first solution of 4. We would have 4 minus 4 times 4 plus 2, and we're seeing if b equals 0. So what's 4 minus 4? What's 4 plus 2? Is 0 times 6 going to be 0? Awesome. So that just kind of proves that 4 is one of the solutions. Let's check the other solution. Let's check negative 2. Negative 2 minus 4 times negative 2 plus 2. And we're seeing if that equals 0. So negative 2 minus 4 is actually a negative 6. Negative 2 plus 2 is actually a 0. And it will equal 0. So that's awesome. So both of our answers work. Make sense? All right, the numbers are getting a little bit bigger, but I'm pretty sure you can probably figure this one out. There's going to be two answers. We're using the zero product property again. If d minus 7 times d plus 4/3 equals 0, one of these two had to have been 0. So oftentimes you can just solve these in their head. With my Algebra 2 kids, I basically underline the binomial, and I say, what is the solution to this binomial? Or what value of d would make this binomial 0? You guys know? 7, perfect. So I'm not actually going to show the work if I can do it mentally. And then let's look at our second binomial. What would be the solution of this binomial? What value of d would make this equal to 0? Negative 4/3, good. My other class was saying something about 3/4. You don't want to overthink it. It's just the opposite, you know. a negative 4/3 here partnered with a positive 4/3 would be 0. And you put the word or in between because either one of these numbers would be a solution. This one's a little bit harder. Let's start with this binomial. I think you can solve the n plus 1 in your head. What is the solution to the binomial x plus 1? What value of n makes it 0? Negative 1. Good. And then if it is a little bit harder of an equation that you can't solve out mentally, definitely just set it equal to 0 and solve it with your solving techniques. So minus 11 on both sides. Divide by 3 on both sides. And since I don't know what that divides out to, I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. So m is 11/3, or, oh, it's n, I'm sorry. N, I do not know why I used an m that whole way. Make that an n, make that an n, make that an n. 3n, divide by 3. N is 11/3, or n is negative 1. Yeah? I lost my puppy? No! Did I lose my puppy? Yeah, I did. You get you get 2 tickets, one for finding my mistake and another one for being hilarious and using the lost your puppy thing that Jalen invented. I love it. I think you did invent it, didn't you? Oh, I invented it? Oh. You lost your puppy. All right. Okay, this is good. We're going to go ahead and solve them both out by hand, and then I'm going to show, because there's a lot of scholars in this class, let's face it. I'm going to show all you scholars how you could solve these ones all in your heads, okay, and without writing them out. So we got 2n minus 14 equals 0, or 3n plus 9 equals 0. So let's just solve them traditionally. I would solve this one by adding my 14 and then dividing by 2. So 7. And then over here, I would solve it by subtracting our 9. And then dividing by 3. Or in between. So who would be interested in hearing the way you could do that all mentally? I would. Only one person wants to save time. Come on, everybody wants to save time. So to do it mentally, you look at this value, you take the opposite of this number. So since it's a negative 14, I would take a positive 14, and you would divide it by the coefficient of the variable. So I would divide by 2. So positive 14 divided by 2 equals 7. Make sense? Isn't that awesome? Let's do the same thing here. The opposite of this number would be negative 9. Divide by 3. That'd be negative 3. And that's sweet. So feel free to use that mental shortcut whenever you want to. If you hate it and it's too hard, just work it out by hand, okay? Never use the shortcut to make life harder for yourself. Only use a shortcut if it's going to make it easier for you, okay? All right, let's talk about what factoring is. So factoring basically is backwards distributing. You know, when you draw the rainbow and you distribute and you multiply, it's backwards. It's dividing. All right? I'll show you a problem that has already been distributed, and we will try to factor it. All right? All right, so what we have here is something that has already been distributed. What our job is to do find what it looked like before any distributing took place, right? So the way you do it is you want to look at all your terms and think, what is the greatest common divisor of those two numbers? So 6 and 4, what's the largest number that I can divide out of both of them? Brooke? Awesome, and you're going to put that number out front. Then you're going to see if there's any variables that they both have in common. Like, do they both have an m, or do they both have an m squared? And they don't, because 6 has an m and 4 does not, so we can't bring any m's out front, okay? So then I kind of backwards distribute in a sense that I think to myself, 2 times what would give me 6m? Or 6m divided by 2 equals what? Do you know? 3m. Good, because 2 times 3m would give you 6m. And then what would be in this blank? 2 times what would give you 4? In other words, 4 divided by 2 equals 2. So you can kind of use division to backwards distribute. And this would be your answer. This is called factoring. We factored out what is called a common monomial of 2, and then we wrote what was left after the 2 got factored out. Did you follow? You want to try another one? I'm going to erase this. We're going to try another one. We'll make it a little bit harder with the variables. 5x to the third plus 20x squared. That's a good one. So we're going to pull out front a common monomial and think about what we have left behind. So let's start with the numbers. We have a 5 and a 20. What is the biggest number I can divide out of both 5 and 20? Brooke? Awesome. All right, now we have x's. If this has x to the third and this has x squared, you want to think about what is the most that they have that I can pull away. Yeah? 2 x's. So we write that as x squared. So I'm basically going to pull away 2 x's from him, and I'm going to pull away 2 x's from him when I factor. All right, we'll have 2 people in here, a plus sign in the middle because of this plus sign. By the way, if this had been a minus sign, this would need to be a minus sign. That's how these work, okay? So 5x squared times what would give you 5x cubed? 1x. Yep, and you can just write x if you want, or you put a 1 there. I was watching Arjun and he had a 1. That's fine. All right, and then 5x squared times what is 20x squared? 4. Very good. And that's your answer. This is called factored form. I probably wouldn't have the rainbows there if I was putting this on a quiz answer blank. Make sense? All right, you want to look for a harder one? I think these were easy. Let me look on my slide for a harder one. I want one with a minus. Let's do this one. It's got a minus sign in it. Try it all by yourself. I'll pause the video. You can try it all by yourself and I'll check it. Well, you can even have somebody come teach it. All right, our answer is 3m squared out front and 3m to the 5th minus 1 on the inside. We had a student come up and teach this. She did an awesome job. All right. Let's do one more and then we'll move on to solving problems. So try this one by yourself.
Even have W's on my paper too.
All right. We had a student come go over this one. She brought out a 7 and a w squared, and that's perfect. Ignore this little dash right here. I think that's just a stray mark. Then on the inside, it would be a 1w to the third and then a -5. All right? All right, we're going to talk about the steps to solving a polynomial that when you use factoring. So basically, you'll have a polynomial such as 28m squared minus 8m, and they will say to you to solve it. Okay, so your first step is get your equation set equal to 0. Second step, factor, using the method we learned today, common monomial factoring it's called. Step 3, use the 0 product property to step 4, come up with the 2 solutions. And then step 5 is always fun and optional, checking your answers. So I'll let you write down the steps and then we'll actually do the steps together. Alright, so step 1 is get everything set equal to 0, and we decided we were going to move the 8m over to join the 28m squared. And that way we can be living in the world of the positives and not have any negative numbers. Step 2 is to use that common monomial method that we've been practicing all day. So what do you guys think we could pull out front, factor out front? Which the largest number, 8 and 28, could be divided by? Good. And then for variables? M. A single m. And that would leave us with 7m plus 2 in the parentheses. Oh, that equals 0. To the right. Now, here is how we finish it from here. We're just going to solve. We're using the zero product property to solve. If 4m times 7m plus 2 equals 0, we can conclude that either 4m equals 0 or 7m plus 2 equals 0. And that makes our final solutions m equals 0, because if you would divide both sides by 4, you get 0. Or, if you solve this side, you subtract 2 first, and you divide by 7 next, and you get m equals negative 2/7. So we're not going to check if these are right, but you can always feel free to go back to the original problem and stick both answers in and verify that they both work. Okay? So it's kind of a lot. You got your factoring, you got your solving, but they're not going to get any harder than this one, okay? We'll try a couple more. So on the homework, just make sure you're reading the instructions, because some have you factor, some have you solve, and then some have you factor and solve, which is the whole process. All right, let's try this one. So if we're following the steps, step 1 is get it set equal to 0. Is it already set equal to 0? Yes. So step 1 is done. Step 2 is, what does it say on the paper? Factor. So can we pull any numbers out front? Is 15 and 2 divisible by any numbers? Yeah, you don't want to bring a 2 out from the 15, because 15 is not divisible by 2. But there is a variable we could factor out. What about an x? So 2x squared, if I would pull an x out, would leave me with 2x. And 15x, if I would pull an x out, would leave me with a 15. So that's what it looks like in factored form. Now we use our zero product property to solve. If x times 2x plus 15 equals 0, then either x equals 0 or 2x plus 15 equals 0. Well, that's our first answer. We're going to solve this out to get our second answer. I'll move my 15 first, and I'm dividing by 2. So negative 7.5. Alright, I think if you do one more all by yourself as the graduation problem, it can be done. Sound good? Okay. Done a lot of math today, huh? Ooh, getting tired. I'm finding a good one. Well, I guess it's this one's the last one. Alright, this is your graduation problem. Find your 2 solutions for K. Alright, I think we're ready to check. I brought my 6x over to join my 3k squared. It's k, sorry, I said x. Because I kind of like this leading coefficient to be a positive. So if you can keep this 3 a positive, then move people over to join him. I factored out a 3k, leaving me with a k minus 2 in the parentheses. And then for solving, I used my zero product property. Either 3k had to be 0, which means k is 0, because divide by 3 on both sides gives 0, or k minus 2 is 0, and if you add your 2, you get a 2. So 0 and 2 are your final answers. How many of you graduated and got that all by yourself? Awesome. That's like almost 100%. That's awesome. I'm proud of you guys. So I'm going to stop the video, and your homework tonight is a worksheet. It does have a front and the back.